you know, there are situations in African communities where they have to go to dump yards, catch a rat, put them in a tiny cage and feed them junk, and they grow into the size of the cage because they can't move, there's no energy burn, and the rat is sold in the market as a delicacy, and someone who can afford more gets the rat to eat. Now, what are we asking for? We are not asking for a candy shop. We are asking to bring these negotiations into a level where even a tiny country like Sri Lanka or a Pacific island like Vanuatu, who was rated by a group on the happiness index as the happiest country on earth, people on earth happiness index, to have a say, an equitable say on negotiations. Then we can see what are the most challenging issues on earth and how do we solve these together.
So in that context, it also seems a bit utopian, because at the end of the day we are also talking about a very real world. So at the global and international level, we are talking about this climate debates and the threat it poses and what the seriousness of it. So on a more sort of a personal level and becoming an activist also, how can we transform and bring these dialogues that are in the international fora to the real life, where everybody can actually take some action with respect to facing this particular threat?
That is why we had to create what was called the Climate Sustainability Platform in Copenhagen while the official negotiations were going on in another place. Now, the climate discussion has not reached people. Not only in this country, how many people do understand what climate change is? You do not have to go to the streets to look at this. Go to the business leaders in this country, or the government leaders in this country, or even the civil society leaders in this country. How many people do understand what climate change, what the phenomenon is in scientific or realistic terms? Now, if people do not understand, there's a grave danger of climate change, the climate changing. How are they going to adjust themselves, or which is called adaptation? If people do not know that they are part and parcel of inducing the climate change, how can they act responsibly and not create more problems on the environment? So, the most burning issue at the moment is how to create global awareness and make people understand that even little things that you do in your lifestyles would be the answer towards living in a better world in 2050. What can we do? Look, we can, the simple things that you hear. Why keep the water running? You open the tap and let the water run. You switch on a light or a fan and you keep it on, and you go to another room and the fan continues and the light continues. Now all this adds to a whole global basket, whether it's from Sri Lanka or whether it's from New York. Now, but that is the simplest way of looking at it. But the issue is not that. If someone is consuming more than what he should be consuming, about 100 times more than another person on earth, it is depriving that poor person of consuming at least the bare margin for survival. So it is not about under consuming. At least half of the world have to consume more than they are consuming now and consume at right levels. That is the discussion that is burning today. So then how do you consume? There are ways of consuming. I mean, we have survived on earth for centuries, and this is a short period of time what you are calling the consumeristic lifestyles or consumerism. You go into a Malaysian or in Thailand or Indonesian mega malls, these large super malls. I mean, it's amazing the amount of consumption that is happening in those super malls. It is not just about Europe or America anymore. The tiger.
So what you are saying is the consumerist nature is also shifting from the west to the east as well.
It has. It has. Look, I had 1 hour of a discussion with head of Grameen Bank or leader of Grameen Bank, Dr. Mohammed Yusuf in 2004. I was conducting the Asian Review on Sustainable Consumption as a project partnered between United Nations, my organization, and Consumers International for the European sector. Now, Dr. Yunus, Mohammed Yunus, a very, very interesting man, one of the top leading thinkers on the father of microcredit and one of the leading thinkers on eradicating poverty. He was telling me a story about the garment industry in Bangladesh, similar to Sri Lanka. You know, young women, young girls who were under their guidance or parents in the farms were suddenly called and given the opportunity to work in the big city and given an opportunity to earn their money. Now, this was the first time that these rural young women, number one, got independence from their families, two, is got more independence because they were earning money and the money was coming into their purses. But what happened was that did this money transform into well-being and happiness for them? As fast as the money came, the money was spent in the city itself. And Dr. Yunus says, one of the first things that, in the research says that they were using the money to buy cheap lipstick.
So somehow the economy gave them the income, and they also found opportunities to get it back to the system.
Of course, that is what the prevailing economic system is all about. This is why we are talking about saying that growth-based economic development paradigms have failed on earth and we saw the system collapsing, the economic system collapsing during the past year.
So what you are saying is now you say that consumerism also has shifted to the east, and the example of to the south, yes. And then what is the point you are trying to make there? Are you saying the growth-based economy is not the way to go forward in embracing sustainable environmental challenge? Is that what you are trying to say? Where does all this tie in? Now my question is, we spoke about so many aspects, from poverty, we spoke about hunger, we talked about the unequal distribution of income, then consumerism, and then consumerism trends spreading from the west to the south as well, and then we also spoke about sustainability and the fact that all all these things we spoke about were in different compartments if we were thinking about a train, so to say. And you said that the train stopped because the engine stopped, and each and every compartment wanted to get an engine by itself, and therefore the destination was also becoming invisible. So what can you tell Mr. De Zoysa to tie up everything, to tell, okay, now from here, where can we take it, and what is the role of the environmental activists and also the global forum and also at a personal level? So I want you to tie it up.
One single word, I would call it mindfulness.
Okay.
Mindfulness is when you and I realize what our responsibilities or why we are here, or all these questions. Now, it means that if you need little bit more calories than I need in your system, I need to understand that. At the same time, I need to understand my level of calories that I need.
But then, it's a selfish world, Mr. De Zoysa, isn't it?
So we may perish. That is what the scientists are saying. Finally, humans may perish in their greed. There was this interesting movie that was launched last year just before the Copenhagen summit, called The Era of the Stupid. Now, look, what it says is that by 2052, the earth is going to be destroyed and only a few humans are left, and in rugs and so on. And they are showing from the past how this greed to create a material world, a consumerist society, leads towards climate devastation, natural disasters that leaves earth in an inhabitable situation. Now, as far as I'm